start off with the lean. Check the side of the trailer, make sure it's not leaning. Walk to the other side.
You good.
Make sure it's not leaning. If it's not, then you got to mention some things that can cause a lean, which is flat steering tire, bad suspension, uneven load in the back. So you just have to name 3 things that can cause the truck to lean. Then you look underneath for any leaks. And the same thing, you got to name 3 things that could possibly be leaking. It's any fluid. So windshield wiper fluid, brake fluid, oil, coolant oil. You just have to name 3. Not leaking. Then we're going to go to the lights up top. Those are clearance lights. You can't just say lights. You have to say clearance lights. You always state the color. They're amber in color. Properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. They're not cracked, broke, or bent. That's it for those. And you gotta just follow it down. The windshield, properly mounted and secured. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. The seal around the window is rubber. Any type of rubber is A, B, C, D. Abrasion, bubbles, cuts, dry rot. On anything that's rubber. So just remember that. You always have to say that with anything that's rubber on the truck when you describe it. And the windshield is not leaking. Then you go to the windshield wipers themselves. Properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. They're not cracked, broke, or bent. And the rubber on my windshield wiper, rubber. So it's no abrasion, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry wire. And it's flush to my window. From there, you go to your fender mirror. And also you have to say on the window there's no illegal stickers or anything that would obstruct my view. My fender mirror is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. The mirror itself is clear and clean, and there's no stickers or anything that would obstruct my view there. Next you go to your light. This is a 4-way light. It has 4 functions. The easy way I remember it is Mr. T. Marker, reflector, turn signal, and 4-way. So you got 3 of them, Mr. T, and then that 4-way. Marker, reflector, turn signal, and 4-way. That's your 4 things. Okay. It's amber in color. You always have to mention the color. Properly mounted and secured, all nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broken, or bent. Then you go here. The smaller light is your high beam. The bigger light is a low beam. Same thing. It's clear in color. You always have to mention the color. Properly mounted and secured, all nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. That's for your light here. Then your license plate. Properly mounted and secured, all nuts and bolts are present and tight. It is bent, but it's not cracked or broke, and it is up to date. So that's all you have to do there. Y'all want to unlatch the side so we can open it? The engine, you always start from the passenger side. They call that the unique side. There ain't really a lot on this side to talk about before. The alternator, the belt, and wires. What I do, the guy who taught me, he said you first give a general overview of all your hoses, your rubber, so properly mounted and secured, all nuts, bolts, and clamps are present and tight. They're not leaking. They have no abrasion, bubbles, cuts, and kind of power hoses. Go here, first to the left, this is my window, washer, fluid, reservoir. Properly mounted and secured, all nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broken, or bent. Anything with fluid, you have to say is not leaking. Then the cap is hand tight. Then I'm going to go this with the alternator. That's it. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. There's no sign of arcing, meaning electrical spark on that. You'll see a black line. Well, soot is on the exhaust. Okay. With the alternator, you have to just say no signs of arcing.
arcing.
Which is it'll be a black mark, like an electric strike, or like a lightning strike.
Okay.
There's no sign of arcing. Property line security is not cracked, broke, or bent because it's metal. The wires on the alternator, properly mounted and secured, all nuts and bolts are present and tight. There is no bare wires showing, and there's no illegal tape on that. You have to say that with any electrical wire on here. No illegal tape, no bare wires showing. Then the belt itself is here. You have to pull on it. It's rubber, so it's properly mounted and secured. It has no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, or any signs of dry rot. And you know how a belt would fray on the side? Yes. It has no signs of fraying. And when I pull on this, I have no more than an inch, well, a half to 3/4 of a difference in pull when I pull on that. So a half, 3/4 of an inch pull when I pull on that. And the alternator itself, you have to say, is belt driven. It's driven by this belt here that I just pulled. And that's it on this side. Things on this side, but they always start at the top. It says it right on it. Coolant. So that's my coolant reservoir, if you want to say. Properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked or broke, and it's not leaking. My cap is hand tight, and the hose is coming from my coolant. There's no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot. It's not leaking, and it's properly mounted and secured on that hose. From here, we move across. This is the water pump. This metal, I want to say it's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. It is not leaking on the water pump. It is also belt driven by that same belt that drives the alternator, drives this water pump. You have to say it's belt driven. You also have to pull on the belt again. It's right here. Say that when I pull on my belt, I have no more than a half to 3/4 inch of play when I pull on that belt. Again, my water pump is belt driven. Here, I'll go here to my dipstick. My dipstick, properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. This is my engine oil dipstick. To check this, I don't have to actually pull it out when I tell them that, but you would tell the tester that to check my engine oil, I would pull that out, wipe it clean, just like the car, put it back in, pull it out. If any oil needs to be added, you would add a gallon of oil, and it's not leaking. So that's that. From here, you got an air compressor that's back here on the wall. And then you have your power steering pump, which all of these, this right here, your power steering pump is back there as well. Those are properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. They're not leaking, and they are gear driven. So the two items back here, air compressor and power steering pump, are gear driven. Have to say that to get credit for it. Then from that, I will come out. This here's my steering shaft. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. I have two universal connectors here that's properly lubricated. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. Again, it's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. From there, I will go to my gearbox here. It's called a gearbox. It's metal. So I'm going to say it's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent, and it is not leaking. And my hose here is rubber. It's no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot, not leaking. It is properly mounted and secured. All clamps properly mounted and secured. And this here gearbox is not leaking either. Then I can go to my reservoir. This is my power steering reservoir. And I forgot up here, you have to say the fluid is filled between the minimum and the maximum. So manufacturers expect the same thing with this. The fluid is between the minimum and the maximum. Just like your oil, it'll say add when you need to add, and you add when you need to add, and only then. It has a cap It's hand tight. Again, it's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent, and it's not leaking. And just like I did, when you're doing something, you forget that you did something, you can go back and talk about that. Because I mean, we human. I've been doing it for a little while, and like I said, I forget something. You can go back and go over it if you forget it. Like Mr. Examiner, I forgot to say on this, the fluid needs to be between minimum, so you can go back and forth if you forget something. So we got here, I got my gearbox. I'm gonna go to my suspension down here, because I'm gonna do all of this stuff in one. My suspension, that is a spring leaf right here. It's for my suspension. There's two leaves on top of each other. They are aligned. Then I have a spring leaf front mount, spring leaf rear mount, two U-bolts.
Wait, this is the front mount?
That's the front mount right here. And this is the rear mount. Okay. It's mounted with two U-bolts. So that's my suspension system. Then I have my shock, upper shock mount, lower shock mount, and my shock. So you name everything in the suspension. Then you say everything is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. My shock is not leaking. And again, it has an upper and lower mount on my shock.
Okay.
And my leaves are in line, so they're not offline. They need to be replaced if they wasn't on top of each other like that.
Okay.
And again, those are my two U-bolts, properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. Those two bolts that go around that.
Okay.
So then I'll go to my steering. I already covered some of it. I covered this and that and this. This is my, y'all know what that is?
Is it a pitman arm?
Yep, I saw it coming. That's the pitman arm. You know what this one is?
Drag link?
Cool. That is my drag link. The neck is an upper mount and a lower mount. And you know with that long bar that goes from this side all the way to that side down there, you know what that is too then? Tie rod. It's a tie rod. That's all part of this. Upper mount, lower mount, and tie rod.
This part right here?
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, I like to name everything in that section, then say the phrase that pays. Because there's too many things, and you be saying it over and over.
Yes.
You already say it over and over and over.
Exactly. Agree. Perfect.
But this pitman arm, drag link, upper mount, lower mount, tie rod are all properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. They're not cracked, broke, or bent. Properly lubricated. They also have a castle nut and Carter pin here, and it's also a castle nut and Carter key back here as well that are properly mounted and secured, and the bolts are tight. So that's it. Then I'm gonna go to my brake chamber here. My brake hose, properly mounted and secure. No abrasions, bubbles, cuts, signs of dry rot. It's not leaking. My brake chamber, it's metal. So I'm going to say it's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. I have a brake chamber. I have a brake chamber clamp. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. It's not leaking. On this, I have a push rod. The push rod is back up in there when you mash your brakes. It actually pushes that lever out. This is a slack adjuster. And like I said, this is my push rod right here going around that. So slack adjuster, push rod, clevis pin, and Carter key on this side. And you have to say to get credit for this, when my brakes are released, my push rod doesn't move more than an inch to get credit for that. So from that, then I'm going to go inside my rim to my brake drum, brake liner, brake head. They're all right on top of each other. And I wish this was turned. So this is the shoe, right? It's secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It has no dog, which stands for dirt, debris, oil, or grease. And that's on your brake pad, liner, and drum. You also have to say that it cannot be worn dangerously thin on the pad or less than 1/4 of an inch. I have to say that to get credit on that. Then you're going to go to ICD. What ICD stands for is inflation, condition, and depth. The inflation on this tire is either set to manufacturer's specification or company specification. That's the inflation. The C stands for condition. That's going to be inside of your tire, here, and here. It's rubber, so it doesn't have any what?
Bumps up.
Or dry rot. Signs of dry rot. Then the D stands for
Depth.
depth. That's your tread here.
430 seconds.
They used
To be, yes, that's the 430 seconds. It needs to be evenly worn between this one and that one. Cannot be recapped. And this has to be the same size as the one over there. Okay. Then I'm gonna come to my rim. I'm glad they got this up top because that's easy to forget. Easy.
Yeah.
But my rim is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. This is my valve stem. It's metal. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. It's not leaking. My tire itself is not leaking. To check the inflation in my tire, I would use the tire gauge. With all metal, it's good to say that there is no illegal welds. So this is my rim. There is no illegal welds on this. My lug nuts, properly mounted and secured, and they're tight. Rust holes or oblong holes where you can actually see past the nut would indicate a loose lug nuts. If you see cracks in your rim anywhere, that would indicate that they're too tight. This is what they call a hub seal. The front has hub seals, and then very back axle back there got hub seals. These two are axle seals because they got power going to them. So this is my hub seal. You say the phrase that pays, properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. It's not leaking. And this has a rubber seal on the top of it. There's no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot. To check this, I would remove this, stick my finger, and I should have at least that much oil in there when I stick my finger in there to check that. So I can check my hub seal oil. Make sure I didn't forget anything. That is it for A. B starts from here to the end of the wheels back there. So B, this is a multi-function light. Remember, Mr. T. Marker, reflector, turn signal, and forward. That's easier for me. That's the only thing you need to remember is the turn signal. Mr. T. Marker, reflector, turn signal, and forward. It's amber in color. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent on that. But you have to mention the color to get credit for it. And you have to mention the 4 functions of the light. Now I go here to my side view mirror. It is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. My mirror itself is clear, clean, free of any illegal stickers or anything that would obstruct my view. Then you do a general overview of your door. It's not cracked, broke, no holes in my door, properly mounted and secured. You open the door, close the door, open the door. You're going to pull up on the hinge, make sure the door is secure. And you're going to say, my door is secure, it's properly mounted and secured, the hinge is here. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. You want to mention your seal here. It doesn't have any nuts and bolts, so you want to be careful. Just say it is properly mounted and secured. It's rubber, so I'm going to say it has no abrasion, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot. I also have a seal in here that's the same like all around my door. It's properly mounted and secured, and it has no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of any dry rot. Then you have to actually, your window, you don't have to make it go up and down, but you have to tell the instructor my window goes up and down with the controls here. My window itself is clear and clean of anything that would obstruct my view. And there is nuts and bolts in this that connect the window, so you have to say it's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts inside my door are present and tight. And that's it in here. You close that. And you pop this. This is a battery. We don't have to talk about it, but this is our def tank. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not cracked, broke, or bent. It's not leaking. My cap itself is hand tight. There's a rubber seal in there. There's no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot. It is attached here with a cord so you don't lose that. There's no illegal welds or anything on that. But just make sure anything with liquid is not leaking. All of my tanks always says not cracked, broke, or bent, not leaking. And that's it on that. No, it's not. It needs to be at least 1/8 of a tank. And I would check this with my gauge on my gauge right here in front of my steering wheel. It has a depth fluid gauge on it. So that's it. Then I'm going to say my steps here. I also have steps in here. And catwalk. They're properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. They're not cracked, broke, or bent. And they don't have any dog, any dirt, debris, oil, or grease, ice, or snow, anything that would make me slip when I get into the vehicle. Next, I'll go to the gas tank. Sometimes it's right there, sometimes it's here. But you guys see where the gas tank is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's metal, so I'm gonna say there are no illegal welds on my gas tank. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not leaking. It has a cap on there. It needs to be hand tight. That has a chain on it. I also have a rubber seal in there. There's no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot. I also have a metal strap and a rubber vibration dampener is what they call it, that holds that tank. Of course, the rubber has no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot. The strap itself is properly mounted and secured, and all nuts and bolts are present and tight. The rubber vibration dampener is in place so that metal doesn't rub to metal and make a hole in my gas tank. Okay. From here, there's 2 items in here you have to mention. One is a drive shaft. In the drive shaft, you have to say it's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not bent, broke, cracked, or anything. Then I have my exhaust. My exhaust is properly mounted and secured. That's the exhaust here. This is the drive shaft.
Okay.
But the exhaust itself.
Is that one over there?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the drive.
No, I don't know what I'm saying.
The other one
explains everything, though. That's what I'm saying. So it's too much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
That's the only way.
really not. But your drive shaft, you have to say properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It is not twisted. You have to say to twist it on the drive shaft. My exhaust, properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not bent, broke, cracked. It's not leaking. And when my vehicle is cranked, it doesn't make a loud audible noise. You have to say that one on the, and it doesn't have any soot trails to indicate it was leaking either. So no signs of soot on that exhaust. From there, I'll go to my frame, which is here. This is my frame. It doesn't have any illegal welds, properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. These are my cross members. I have one here and one on the other side of the tires. Also properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It doesn't have any illegal welds either. All of these tires, they have what's called dual brake systems. So I have a dual brake chamber, one for each axle. So I have a dual brake here, a brake chamber here, and a brake chamber there. I have 2 hoses attached to each brake chamber, so I'm going to say the hoses have no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot, properly mounted and secured, and tight and not leaking. My brake chamber itself is not cracked, it's not leaking, it is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It also has 2 clamps on each brake chamber that they're actually properly mounted and secured on there as well. Then I have the same stuff that's on the brake chamber up there. I have my push rod, slack adjuster, clevis key, and carter pin. And when I push when my brakes are released, it's no more than an inch play. You have to sit down on each brake chamber you talk about, or you don't get any credit for it. So that's the brake chamber. I covered the brake chamber and the hoses attached to the brake chambers. This, I'm going to come out now and talk about my suspension. This here is a spring mount. You can call it a torque spring or a spring mount. Torque is 1 and leaf is 2. That's why the one up there got multiple leaves. It's a leaf string. This only has 1 spring, so it's a torque spring. And this is my torque spring mount, or you could just say spring mount. Every leaf spring and torque spring has 2 U-bolts in the back of it. So I got my 2 U-bolts back there. And you have to, all the systems are a little different, so you kind of have to look in there. So I got my leaf spring here, then I got my 2 U-bolts, and just like up there, I got a shock attached to it. It's the same thing. That's why I say it's not a lot, because each axle is the same. Right. Once you learn one, it's just going back over the same thing. Yes. So I have, what is this?
A shock spring, a torque spring.
A torque spring mount.
A torque spring mount.
Or you can just say spring mount.
Torque spring mount.
And what's that spring there called?
The shock spring?
A torque spring.
Because it's 2 U-bolts.
Oh, okay.
2 U-bolts. And once you do that, you're going to say, I can see a shock back there too.
Oh, that one thing coming in?
That's my shock.
Oh,
that's why I say you have to look in there. And I have a upper and lower shock mount. My shock is properly mounted and secured, as well as my torque bar.
This is the shock mount?
No.
This bar goes straight down. This big, thick bar, like your arm.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Correct. Shock mount.
Now that is your shock.
Oh,
Shock absorber, just like your car, that's your shock. Torque, 2 U-bolts, and I have a shock with an upper and lower mount. They're all properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. My shock is not leaking, and my torque is not bent, broken, or cracked, and there's no illegal wheels in the system. So that covers present and tight. They cannot be worn dangerously thin on my pads. You got a question?
No, I'm thinking.
Okay, and they can't be any less than a 1/4 inch thick on the brake pads. My inner rim, properly mounted and secured, all nuts and bolts are present and tight. There are no illegal welds. Then I'm going to do my ICD again. My inflation on these tires, this company and manufacturer spec. My seat is conditioned, all sides. No abrasions, motor cuts, any signs of dry rot, not leaking. This rim here is butted with the other rim. They call it a bud rim. You have to mention bud rim to get credit for it. And also, while it's on my mind, you have to mention 303. What the 303 is 3 feet from here to here. That's in place for the turn of your trailer. You got 0 space between your skid plate and your apron on your trailer. That's the 0. And then the other 3 is from your mud flap here to your landing gear. These would be 3 feet. 303. I like to try to mention it in there so I don't forget about it.
So the 3 is from
The trail.
the trail.
0 is between the apron and the 5th wheel.
And the 5th wheel.
And then the other 3 is from the mud flap to the landing gear.
Okay.
So I did my inflation, I did my condition. My depth on these tires is what?
232.
Good. And you gotta say my tire's not leaking. These can be recapped. They can be mismatched. They have to be the same size, but they need to be evenly worn. Then I'm gonna come to my rim again. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. There are no illegal welds. My pin here, then my other pin is inside there. You were asking about it too. My tire air gauge is properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's not broke or cracked. It's not leaking. And I would check that with the tire gauge. Then I would go here. My lug nuts the same way around here. Properly mounted and secured. And they are tight. Rust trails or oblong holes indicates loose. And cracks on my rim, what they call spider cracks, indicate too tight. And you can remember that just by tightening. It puts the stress in that rim. It's a crack, what they call spider cracks. Then I'm gonna go. These are axle seals. Those two are hub seals. That's a hub seal. This has power going to it, so it's an axle seal. Both of these are axle seals. So my axle seal is metal. It's not cracked. It's not leaking. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and they are tight. And I would have to have my mechanic check that because it's a sealed system. That's why these bolts are on here.
Okay.
So you can't check that from anywhere.
Okay.
And from there, you just kind of look around, make sure you didn't miss anything. You also want to say you would expect this axle just like this axle because it has the same thing. You got your mount, you got your torque spring back there, you got your shock, you got your two U-bolts. It's exactly the same.
Okay.
But keep in mind, if you miss something on this axle and you say that, you missed it on all axles.
Right.
So you got to bag. And it's easy to forget because you can't see it. See that big old thing right there?
Yes.
There's one here, there's one there. So you have to mention that. That's my airbag. I have an upper and lower airbag mount, properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. The airbag itself is rubber, so you have to say there's no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot, and it's not leaking. Also, then you can go to your mud flap here. It needs to be anywhere from 2 to 8 inches. They say you can say 3 to 8 inches, it's all the same. It's properly mounted and secured. All nuts and bolts are present and tight. It's rubber, so there's no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, any signs of dry rot, and it has 100% DOT tape on there that's red and white, and it's properly mounted and secured. I'm gonna get this fifth wheel area here. I also need to get my coupling. But yeah, this here is my apron. The little ball is called a kingpin. It's welded to my apron. Then the plate here is a skid plate. It needs to be properly greased. What holds the skid plate is the platform, which I don't know if y'all can actually see what I'm pointing at, but this is my platform. It holds my skid plate. This is my sliding rail, because this thing slides back and forth. Then I have my sliding rail mounting bolts. Then I have my locking pins that lock this thing into place. My release handle here, when I'm ready to disconnect, I have to pull that release handle and it would, hopefully my legs are down and all that stuff to catch that. But I have my release handle here. It is all in the lock position. Then I'm gonna come down here and look under there and tell the instructor that I'm looking at my fifth wheel area, and it's a bar in between there. I'll never get under there. Get under there. But I'm gonna look in the fifth wheel area. It is a bar across there, silver bar. That's